So I saw this stuff online earlier today about how Apple, not too long ago actually, about how Apple may be releasing a foldable iPhone as early as 2026, which begs the question, well, uh, can a foldable iPhone save Apple? Now, someone might hear that and think, what is wrong? Like, what's wrong with Apple? Are they crashing and burning or something? No, no one said that. Far from it. Apple is like humongous. They're sitting on a ton of cash. Like they're basically a small country, like in their own right, and maybe not even small in terms of like how much money they have and how much revenue they bring in and all that. But here's the thing. Now, the reason why Apple is where they are financially today, other than the vision of Steve Jobs and the engineering prowess, that's the word, right? Of Woz and all that. And obviously, like the reason where they are, where they're at the moment, today, in this day and age, is the iPhone. It's not the Macs. And yeah, they make money in different shapes, different ways and forms nowadays, but the main bulk of the money they make is still the iPhone. And I mean, of course, the iPhone as a baby was born in the Steve Jobs era. He was the visionary guy, was the engineer. They couldn't do it without each other. Of course, the visionary bit of Steve Jobs was like essential in what the iPhone became. Steve Jobs didn't make Apple a humongous business the way Tim Cook did. That was Tim. And they can't replace each other. Tim can't be Steve. He could not have done that. And Steve couldn't have brought Apple to where it is as a business today. Not the way Tim has. And I mean, people can look at Tim and say he's not as a visionary as Steve. Well, I mean, usually people who found companies are the visionaries. I guess it depends on the industry, but that's normal. It's normal for the like second generation leadership to be they're business people. He's an engineer, he's a business person, and that's what he does, you know. And he does it phenomenally in terms of the business. But that's the thing. Can a foldable iPhone save Apple the business? Now, Apple, like I was saying, getting to where they are at this point was because of the iPhone. And any product has a product life cycle where, you know, it's going to grow and whatnot, and eventually it's going to plateau. And when it plateaus, well, that's just life, and that's just the nature of business and the nature of products and the nature of the market. Things just don't stay the same, right? So Apple's been riding this humongous wave, and waves die. It's just how things are. For a foldable, I think what they were trying to do, obviously, they understand this way better than I would. You know, I'm just a random guy on YouTube, right? But they wanted something to replace the iPhone in terms of growth that would have magnitude. I would think they're looking for something that has magnitude similar to the iPhone, hey, maybe even bigger. For that to be their new wave and their new, the thing that breathes life into the business that is Apple and becomes their next humongous wave, as big as the iPhone, if not better perhaps, that they can ride and achieve new heights and continue growing and whatnot. And I have a feeling that not all of them were thinking that, but at least some of them were thinking that's going to be the Apple Vision Pro. Obviously, it's ridiculously expensive, and not everyone wants to, you know, spend that kind of money. But I would say it kind of flopped business-wise, because I like how many units did it sell. Now, some people will say, yeah, but it was like really meant to be a prototype. They didn't really release it for the public. They released it for the developers to work on something great and come up with something awesome and all that. Maybe, fine. But it's a product that's on the market. You want it to make a ton of revenue, right? You want to make profit. You're a business, you're not a lab. You're not a research lab. This is not school. This is real life. It's business. So, the Vision Pro didn't like blow up, right? It didn't make something, didn't like do phenomenally. I don't think it did. And it's not just the price. It was a ridiculous price. And of course, it's an unbelievably capable piece of hardware, but that's like another story. Even if there's a cheaper version, and there was like talk, about like having the Vision, the Apple Vision 2 or whatever they wanted to call it, or the rumors were saying, or the leaked information was saying, it's not just about the first one was really expensive, and if there's a cheaper one next time, it's gonna sell better. It's just that I think that many people, myself included, don't want to turn into people walking around. I just don't want to wear a thing on my head. The only thing I want to wear on my face sometimes are sunglasses. I don't want to wear a device on my head. If I put on a pair of VR headsets or whatever, or mixed reality headsets or whatever you want to call it, I'll test it out. That's the most I've done. I test it out, look at it. Hey, yeah, that's kind of cool. Okay, interesting. And that's about it. I don't want this to be my life, right? I think inside Apple, there is probably two groups of people. Maybe they bickered it, across the table in meetings, where one group said, no, this is our only new big thing that we can release, and hopefully it can become our new cash cow for the company, the people who are for the Vision Pro. And then there were people who are skeptic of the Vision Pro. I think, I have no information, of course. That's just the vibe I get. And maybe there was like another team thinking, nah, this whole Vision Pro thing, I don't think it's going to do so great. And eventually the people who wanted to release the Vision Pro, I guess there was nothing else new. Well, it seems like it. So they released it in hopes that it would become the new humongous revenue generator. Of course, it didn't work. It flopped, if that was their intent. So I see a foldable iPhone as a push towards like a second attempt at that same kind of idea. Is a foldable iPhone going to be our new cash cow? Now, a foldable iPhone is like a variation, a play on the iPhone. So like it comes from the iPhone, is derived from it, from the main thing. So by nature, I don't think financially that's going to be as humongous as the revenue wave that Apple rode on the iPhone since its inception until now. It can't replace in revenue. And maybe Apple internally have come to a point where they now feel that, all right, we're just not going to have a moment as humongous as iPhone as it's been since 2007 until now. Then maybe we'll just have to have more than one smaller waves that we're just going to have to ride, and they're just going to be our revenue generators, and maybe it's going to be a newer, cheaper Vision Pro or Vision 2 or whatever. And the foldable iPhone. And there's, maybe the foldable iPhone will be adopted more. And I think the foldable iPhone potentially has more possibility of bringing in more revenue, logically, than the Vision Pro. Because it's an iPhone, foldable, smaller, people will sell it. It's going to be the new thing. People will, there's going to be the novelty factor. People are going to want to look at it. Just like there was a novelty factor with probably the Apple Watch when it came out, and then the Ultra when it came out. So yeah, I think that would probably logically sell better than like a Vision Pro ever would. But can it replace the revenue the original iPhone brought in? That like the original iPhone wave from 2007 until now? I don't think so. And like, it's not that Apple is crumbling, it's not crashing and burning, but you need to become or continue being a business at the top of the top, to continue to be that size company, you need something that generates tons of revenue. At least to be at the scale that Apple has been until now. I like the money that they have isn't going to go anywhere, but they've stagnated. You know what I mean? Tim's a great businessman, but the sparkle isn't there. This is not Steve Jobs' Apple, and it doesn't have to be. I mean, life moves on. But it's just like the irony of it is like two things come to mind. One, there was this video, Steve Jobs, he was being interviewed by something. Like if you guys search for it, you'll probably find it. Sorry, I don't have a link or anything. If I find it, maybe I'll put it in the comments. I think I'll be too lazy to look for it, honestly. But he was being interviewed by someone, and he said something along the lines of, In the beginning, companies are awesome, there's innovation, they grow, there's this period of thriving. And then they become bigger, they stagnate, they forget who they are. And then they become like any other company, and then they dwindle and they like kind of go down or stagnate or something like that. So the irony is, it kind of feels like that's where Apple is now. I know the Vision Pro is an amazing piece of hardware, and I know they're still an amazing company technically. I mean, look at the M chips, right? But the magic isn't there. Not the way it was. And that's the irony, is that Steve Jobs kind of warned of that, and it's kind of happened in a way to them. The other thing that comes to mind is, and that's also kind of ironic, is the 1984 ad, the ad that was, I think it was called 1984, back in the day that Apple released, where they were talking about IBM being the behemoth on the market. And there's like, it was like portrayed as the incumbent, the humongous player that's kind of dull. It's represented by this guy, as I understand it. It was represented by this guy on the screen, and everything in the ad is like grayscale, and there's this guy who's issuing these statements to a room of people who are just sitting there dressed like each other, mesmerized and just staring at the screen. And then this lady, this woman in color, runs into the screen and throws this, I think it was like a humongous hammer at the screen, and shatters the screen. And it's like the spell is broken, and these people sober up, and they see the beauty and the color and the life and the magic that Apple brings to the table. The irony is that, like, at the time, IBM was the humongous company, and Apple was the underdog that was coming in to change things and shake things up. Now Apple is that big company. It's them now. But there's no one running in with a huge hammer to shatter the screen. Apple's that big company now. Can they change that? Not by what they've made so far. And I don't think a foldable iPhone or the Vision Pro, even the cheaper one, is enough to do that. It shakes things up a bit, but I don't think it's enough to completely renew their blood, completely, refresh the picture. And also, speaking of how today's Apple kind of resembles, in a way, IBM at the time, look at where IBM is now. So just because you're a company that, and I understand financially, like the picture's probably very different with Apple having probably tons more money than IBM ever did, I'd imagine, but like the idea holds, right? IBM was the huge incumbent at the time, and Apple was the newcomer, the new kid on the block. Where's IBM now? Just because you're huge, this is technology, this is tech. Just because you're huge today, or you've been huge for 10 years, doesn't mean you'll continue to be. Where's BlackBerry now? How huge was BlackBerry? Where are they now? So just because Apple's sitting on a ton of cash, it doesn't necessarily mean that in 20 years, they're going to be the Apple that they are today. For example, maybe they are, maybe they'll turn things around, and that would be amazing. Maybe someone else will come along with, who's fresh, who has new stuff, who presents new ideas and new devices, and it's just gonna like make all the heads turn and change things up. Maybe it's gonna be Apple, maybe it's someone else. But Apple today, they need more change. I know they're doing a lot, but I would think they need bigger, different things to replace the magnitude of effect that the iPhone has had so far and the amount of revenue that the iPhone has brought in so far. They haven't done that yet, and I don't think a foldable iPhone and the cheaper Vision Pro are going to quite do that either. I don't think they're going to do that either. They may, perform decently, and be, oh, look at that, a foldable iPhone. Or hey, a cheaper Vision Pro. Or Vision 2 or whatever. Oh, cool. But I don't think they're going to replace the original iPhone in revenue and in impact. And the whole AI thing, I'm kind of sick of it, really. Like, in terms of the way, I'm not sick of the technology as technology. I'm just kind of tired of hearing about it being used to push consumer gadgets. But anyway, yeah, that's where I think Apple is at the moment. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys, and please like the video if you liked it. I hope you did. Share your comments. Please share the video, and please subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate that. And I'll see you next time.